What's up, everybody? We're back again with another episode of The Journey. I'm your boy, StephenMotivate. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we hope this helps you as much as it helps us to talk about these things. And I'm so excited because I have one of my friends, my brothers, one of the guys that's been with me ever since I moved to North Carolina with us today, who has a wealth of experience professionally and in many spaces around the state and city. So without any further ado, I want to welcome to the journey my friend Eddie Terry. What's up, Ed?
Appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely, man.
Yes, sir.
Happy to have you.
Sir. So we're talking about careers,
yes.
How to pivot. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do I start? School? From school or?
Wherever you want to start. I mean, give them a little bit of background. And I think, to set that up even more, like people are, people like their whole life is kind of set up in a sense to go get a career.
Right.
That's like success. You make it through, you graduate high school, that's success. You get into college, that's success. You graduate college, that's success. Then you get into your career.
Right. Now what?
And now what?
Right. Okay.
And I want you to kind of deal with, all the ups and downs of that. And given what you do now, given you are a career professional and you help people kind of get placed in the right organizations now, hopefully towards the end we can get into some of the tips as to like what are you need to do when you have a job, when you have a career, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it. Okay. So I graduated from Winston-Salem State, 2013.
HBCU.
Yes, sir. Shout out SU. And then I moved here. I mean, I didn't get to do the senior trip, all the fun and everything. I knew what I wanted to do. I had a plan. I knew where I needed to be. So I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in Winston. I was working at a bank, and I was applying, for employment here in Charlotte. Told my mom I had a plan. Of course, at first she was a little against it just because she wanted to make sure I had a plan before just moving. Yeah. But I told her I had everything set up, which I did, interviewed everything, got a job here, doing like some data analysis. So then from there, that was a short-term gig.
How was that move going from a bank to, were you done with the bank, ready to get out of that life? Was the bank not fun? What was it like being in the banking world?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is it helped me at that age. We're talking from 2011 to 2013, so I was pretty young, but it helped me with people management, interacting with people at an early age with large sums of money, which is important. When someone's coming in to talk about finances, it's not really a situation where it's all fun and games, right? They want to know exactly what's going on with their money. Deposits, withdrawals, loans, everything, right?
Yeah, they don't like, what's in my checking account? Oh, I'll get back to you. Right. No, I need to know right away what's in my account.
Exactly. So like that level of seriousness in creating a cadence of communicating with people is where it kind of like originated.
Yeah.
And obviously graduating, I just knew what I wanted to kind of get into. I have a degree in computer science. Okay. Focus in project management. So the communication piece was important in essential to, my future, right? So I get a job here in Charlotte doing some data analysis work. Okay.
Which seems to fit well with the computer science and that sort of thing as well. Okay.
Right. So I did that, and then that lasted about maybe 3 or 4 months. I knew that was going to end. It was actually for like a startup, so I was there for a short time to get everything built up and then move on. So then I got a job in recruiting. At first, I did not know I had like an idea of what it was, but I didn't know specifically ins and outs, processes and things. But I interviewed well, which, I later come to know interviewing is an art. You have to know how to interview.
Big Jim, interviewing is an art.
Right. So I'll get into that later on. But I was there for about a year and a half. They ran into layoffs. So this is when I run into my first level of adversity. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was December the 11th, 2015.
Wow.
I just got an apartment and had money saved up, but I was just distraught because that was my first real world big boy job and didn't know how to handle like just the market and how things, work in that field, right?
And how did they do it? So it's like you got the job. You say you was there for about a year and a half, roughly?
Roughly a year and a half.
Okay. And they just, what was it? They sent out emails. Was there any like warning or was it just boom? We're laying folks off.
It was kind of like boom, but it was more of like a group in that boom. Okay. Right? So I was a part of that, and it wasn't like performance related or anything like that. It was just the business.
Just business. Dang, right before Christmas.
Right before Christmas. However, I had myself set up pretty good. Yeah. So no bills were missed or anything like that.
How did they say it? You're fired, or we're gonna have to let you go, or
it was more of like the nice and easy approach. However,
when did it hit you? Like, wait, what? Because the nice and easy approach will trick you. Like, okay, all right, let me, okay, and then you get in the car, and you're like, wait, am I fired?
That's exactly what happened, just like that. So I called my mom and just told her, and she was just asking if I was all right, and I was, and of course, as a parent. Are you okay with money and all that? And I'm like, I'm good. Like, I have everything I need. Like, this is going to be fine.
That's good, though, too, because a lot of times on the journey, we try to tell people, like, do the right things with your money. You never know when that job is going to end, or you never know, especially being young in your career, who do you credit with making sure you had that, I guess, good enough sense to have paid your bills and where this isn't like, oh my gosh, my lights are going to go off tomorrow.
100% my mom.
Okay.
One of the biggest things she would always say when it came to finances is, if you can't spend it twice, then don't spend it. So you have to be anything that you purchase.
Big bar. Say that again.
If you can't buy it twice, don't spend the money on it.
Yeah.
Anytime you make a purchase on something, you're taking an L. Financially, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't make up for that L, then you probably don't need to spend the money, or maybe think twice before doing it.
Yeah. If you can't buy it twice, then you need to think twice about buying it at all.
There you go. So
I love that, Mom.
So just having that in me, just knowing, okay, like just in case money, if something was to go awry, I was set up pretty good. So So that happened during the holidays, and I was still good and everything. Didn't really have a want for anything. And then January comes, and I get another job, doing the same thing. I'm there for about 6 years, doing everything from recruitment to team management. This is where I get into kind of what I do now, where it's more not so much the recruiting directly, but more so managing accounts, managing more so the relationships from a business development standpoint.
Okay.
And then being in charge of like revenue and, numbers and things like that. So I'm not as granular with the recruiting as much as I used to be, but I still have the foundation of like knowing the processes, how it translates to what I do, which it does have a direct impact on my success. So I was doing that for 6 years. And then boom, another form of layoff. So the thing is that it's not really in my industry, it's not really always performance. It's more of like, hey, if certain accounts are slow, or if a company, our company at that time got bought out. So they did a lot of restructuring, condensed a lot of the business, and then, obviously a lot of the accounts were absolved through other divisions. So it was just more of that. But I knew that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing because, I got severance and all types of benefits and everything. Okay. It was just more of, again, business, right?
Right. Now, but before you go on, and so this is now your second layoff, but talk a little bit about this, because I think people would want to know this. You got a computer science degree. And so how is this, because people are I would imagine the question comes to folks listening like, well, was college even worth it? How is this degree helping you at all deal with these changes, and the fact, are you even using your degree in your career?
Right. So the funny thing about the journey is that I'm now in a space where a lot of the things that I learned in school as it relates to relationship management, account management, project management.
Okay.
Certain practices of how to do analysis and things that are pretty essential to what I do now. That's where that came into play. So I was wondering those same things as well, trying to get in something so direct that at some point I started realizing like I'm still using what I learned, whether it's, managing budgets,
Right.
Financial analysis, meeting with vendors, traveling to have like these meetings and things, all the things that I always wanted with a certain title,
Right.
but I'm still doing it. So like the thing is that, having like that faith to wait, that in between, it has been the essential thing. I never forget. I moved here February, the day of the Super Bowl. I'll never forget this because I think it was the Seahawks and Broncos playing. Right? I'll never forget this. So the first day, I started the next day after that.
Yeah.
So I never forget, I pull up to the parking lot of the job and I get a text from my mom. And she sends me a Bible verse, Galatians 6:9. Do not be weary in doing well, for in due time you'll reap a harvest. I will never forget that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And every time I felt that like I was running into an obstacle or something wasn't happening on my time, I would just like have that. Like it's probably still in my phone now,
That's
but
dope.
I stick to that. Even to now when I feel like, man, like, things aren't going the way I need it to go. I just kind of go back to 2014 me and just have understanding that like you look 10 years ago where I was, some of the things I didn't know, but just relying on the foundation of the whole, if you can't spend it twice, don't get it. Or remembering, to read your Bible and stuff like that. Things that'll carry you. And that honestly, that's literally carried me.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I don't even know how I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You ever feel like that? Like sometimes I just sit and think like, man, like I'm a homeowner.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a, another city. My family can travel and stretch the family. They can travel to see me.
Yeah.
And I have enough room for everyone to stay. Like it's just, sometimes I just don't know.
When did this happen?
When did this happen? It just sort of happened. So
I love it because that is part of the journey. It's happening all the time. And I love the fact that you said like, yeah, I was wondering, am I using my degree? Am I using what I learned? But so many people get so caught up on, I have to directly go into computer science because I have a computer science degree. So I got to go make computers, or I got to go write software, or I got to go. And it's like, no, you don't. You can, those skills that you're learning and all them other classes you're taking that seem like this is a waste of my time, a lot of that stuff is transferable. Yeah, you might get directly into your field, but 90% of people don't. And, you got English majors running, companies or what have you. You don't necessarily have to be directly in your field, but you're learning all the while. Like every day you're learning something. And I love that about your story because it's like you're picking up on and the learning don't just stop at school. It's also with the foundation of your parents or of your leaders or people who's giving you this good wisdom of, hey, read your Bible, Galatians 6:9. Hey, remember this wisdom as it relates to money. And it like to your point, it does carry you. And I think for all of our young listeners is, maybe you're facing a firing, maybe you're facing a layoff, maybe you don't know what career you're going to get into, but just know that if you do the right things, if you don't get weary doing the right things, and sometimes just, plowing away at something you don't think is the right, just keep going because there's a lot that can carry you through that.
Yeah.
But yeah, pick back up on kind of this other layoff and how you were with a company 6 years, and again, it's not your first time this time, but you face adversity once again.
So this is where when you wonder, okay, the tools of, how shall I say this? The tools of like using what you learned in school, relationship management then comes into play because now I've built such a portfolio and a pipeline of people that I know.
Yeah.
That like a week and a half later, I found something.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it wasn't a situation where I didn't see this happen and I already knew and had feelers out.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of just timing and yeah. I mean that's basically it. So.
It's like, and I like that part too because if you're building the right relationships at your current job or in your current career, the one reason you're doing that is because your current job may end. So who did you treat well? Who did you How did you make where did you show value? Because, hey, you might get laid off, and then one of those relationships might turn into a real income earning opportunity.
Right. So essentially, I mean, most of my references, I mean, were raving about me. I mean, like the thing is that I was so worried at the time, but again, I'm human, right? So you're gonna have that natural worry, but then you go back to like again the foundation of like, you know, don't be weary, right? So it was one of those where it was just like, you know, I reached out to some colleagues. I already told them I was putting some feelers out, and they said, "Hey, I know someone that's looking, or I know a company that's looking." Interview and literally like got the job like that. Like it wasn't even like I didn't have time to like
sulk in it.
Yeah, it was like, all right, I'm just gonna go to the next thing, and that was literally it. Like, I mean, I really wish I had like a, like a big story about that. But it was like, okay, I've done the work. Now let my work for me, right? So I've done the work of building relationships.
Yeah, that
work I put in has paid dividends for me, and now in this career is a little bit different than what I've been doing. I'm kind of away from recruiting completely.
Okay.
And more so like managing like our clients, right? As far as like revenue, as far as making sure we're compliant, things like that. So I'm more so doing reports, which honestly is kind of funny because that's what I was doing when I moved here.
Back to the data, looking at the data.
So when you think about, man, like, how am I going to use what I learned in school? I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. Now, it might not be how I envision.
Right.
But, you know the saying, like, if you want to make God laugh, make plans.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So, I didn't know that I was going to be doing that specifically. In my mind, I was going to be a business analyst at Bank of America. Or Tia Cref. I just knew that was what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But little by little, I would apply to those positions here and there, like at the entry level, early in my career. But I would see things in the news about, massive layoffs, especially with like, recessions and, economy and things like that. So it was just like, I just felt like maybe that's not for me. If I keep seeing the same thing and I'm just choosing to ignore it, it's like, okay, then I'm the insane one. Right.
Exactly.
So it's like, maybe the banking industry isn't the way to go, because I got friends who, work for all the big four here, and they just, it's like a, revolving door,
Right.
And I don't know if that's for me in terms of the stability that I want. Whereas I'm in something where I am good at it. I can control like most of my destiny with this.
Yeah.
And I can use what I learned in school.
Absolutely.
So it's like I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Right where you're supposed to be. And I love the fact that it won't always look like what you think it'll look like. It won't always be that. And people with careers need to know that. Like, it's not always going to look like what you think it's going to look like. Your journey, your path, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to be the VP, then I'm going to be the senior VP, then I'm going to then I'll be the CFO or the C. It's like, maybe. But it won't always look like. And I think people with careers need to know this, or if you're seeking to get into a career, you need to know that no matter what adversity comes up, worse being fired, that's like everyone's worst fear. But if you've allowed your work ethic to speak for you, not only in the building but outside of the building, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the biggest things, coming out of school, again, I was probably 23, 22. I thought, to your point, it was going to go exactly how I planned it in my dorm room. I'm going to graduate from Winston. It's going to be this. I'm going to get a job here. And when none of that happened, I was just sitting there just confused, like, why didn't it happen? Right. And the thing is that being able to be consistent in the midst of, like, the chaos, I think is the biggest thing, because, which comes with certain things that your parents teach you, right? Or just life, really. Right. Sometimes it's not even what your parents teach you. It's just certain things you just got to go alone on that journey and just like bump your head a little bit and just know what you don't want, what you shouldn't do, or what you should do.
Yeah. And it's funny because I can relate to that, because when I went back to school to get my master's, I was like, I'm going to be making six figures. This is what people with masters do. They make six figures immediately. And when I first got out, I didn't make six figures.
Right.
And it was like, am I going to take this? It was like, yeah, take it, because you gotta, you can't just look at the media or look at what you think or the statistics, or you looking on, U.S., whatever those things are, news and college reports and what's the best schools and what do people make after they leave school and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, yeah, on average that could happen. But it's an average for a reason. I mean, some people are below that. Some people are well above it.
Right.
And it don't always happen that way right off. But if you're patient, if you do well at your work, you'll eventually get there. And I set a goal, and I eventually got where I wanted to go. But to your point, it does not always look the way you think it'll look. And you got to be what today we would call, you got to have agility. You got to be flexible. And really good employees, really good people that are trying to manage their careers, they recognize how to be agile. Okay, this ain't going the way I thought it was going. I'm on flex. Okay, they giving me a project I didn't know I was going to get. This ain't in my, this ain't in my degree. I didn't learn this in school, but I'm going to research on my own, because what I like to tell people is the best thing I like about school is it teaches you not exactly what you learn, but how to learn, right? And I think more people should really take advantage of that, as, a lot of entrepreneurs and people poo-poo school. But anyway, let's come back to something else you brought up, interviewing, because, a lot of people want a good career. So I don't know what we call this episode. I don't know if we call this episode what you do after facing adversity, after getting fired from a job, after, how you handle that, or if we tell people, like, how do you even get a career? And so when you talked about the art of interviewing, you've had a lot of experience in recruiting. Talk about that a little bit, and talk about some of the aspects of what makes you quick to hire, and some of the attributes you have that makes it,
Yeah. So there's certain elements to interviewing, preparing for an interview. So I think, let's say, for instance, if I was interviewing somewhere, or I had an interview request, right? First thing I'm going to do is do some research on the company. Okay. Whether it's current news or just, something on the website, right? I'm also going to look up if they have a LinkedIn in terms of the person that I'm actually going to speak with. I'm going to look them up too. Okay. I'm going to know everything about them. Yeah. I might even bring something up, especially if I can relate to it. Okay. So you catch them that way, right? And then I think this is the most pivotal part when you are interviewing, because most interviews, 30 minutes to an hour, right? I always, tell people, like, you're probably going to get half of that time to talk. Okay. Because most interviews are going to be them talking about the role, the team, expectations, day to day, right? Right. And then they translate that into asking you about your background, right? So you're only going to get half of that time to really sell yourself. You only get one shot, especially if it's a one and done type of interview, right? So I always say what I felt like is the most effective thing is to focus what's on the job description. Because I can have every skill set, right? But if I'm in an interview and I only have 30 minutes to talk and I'm everywhere, that's not going to be, an effective interview. Right. I think the biggest thing is focus on why you're there. So if there's a certain thing in the job description, specifically in their description, that you can speak to, it provides relevance. So don't forget why you're there. Don't let the introduction, the connection make you start talking about, oh, well, I walk dogs too, and I love to walk dogs. Well, at some point you need to pivot back to what's on the job description. Exactly. So don't spend more time talking about dog walking than what we're here to hire about. Exactly. So I think that method hits a lot harder because it provides relevance to what you can do and to what they've put in their own job description. So let me ask you this: over the 6-7+ years you were on the ground with recruiting. How many people would you say how many interviews do you think you've done? Just throw a number out there. Over 100. Over 100. Over 100. For sure. Yeah. Okay. For sure. Okay. Yeah. So you've done over 100. You've interviewed at least 100 people. Minimum. On bare minimum. Bare minimum side. Yeah. Okay. How many of those, and that's a good number so we can do the math easy, but how many of those would you say do the first thing you said, which was do research on the company? Well, to caveat that, what we do is we prep. Okay. So they don't have to walk into an interview blind. This is just a practice that I do. Okay. So like anytime where like one of our clients says, hey, we would like to interview XYZ candidate, we already set a prep. Let them know. Help them. Yeah. So like that way, we prepped them with everything I just mentioned, situational questions, trick questions, how to handle those things, how to handle situations where you're forced to provide detailed work examples and things like that.
Gotcha.
Talk about like systems you've used. Don't just talk about what you did. Talk about what you've used to actually do it. Right?
Yeah.
Because then, it further validates. It shows a level of like, I guess, maturity within an interview that you've been here before. You know how to handle, whatever's thrown at you, right?
Yeah,
So that's kind of where I've built up kind of like people in that regard.
And do you think most people have been in, I guess, because the point of my question is, how many people do you think don't know to do that? Would you imagine don't know to prep, or like, oh, I should actually do some research on the company? And they thinking that it's all about them,
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, a lot of people don't know to do that because they're so focused on some of the wrong things. And it's not their fault, right? They don't know. They don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So you don't know what to focus on when you're talking to someone who you've never met.
Right.
But that's where we come in because I've built a relationship with the managers and these clients and things like that. So we have intake calls.
But it's pretty common across the board with all the different companies you dealt with, all the different managers, all the different people that wanted to bring people in. They appreciate the fact that you've done a little research on them before you talk about you want to join them.
For sure. So now we don't see, like, managers don't ask that a lot, but I think the biggest thing is, good preparation. Yeah. Because you don't know what may be asked. And I always tell people that, like, you rather have that in your back pocket and not need it than to be asked that and you have no idea who you're interviewing with.
What is it y'all do again? It's like, okay, thank you for your time.
Right, that'll be it. Yeah.
That'll be it. We got it up here.
But yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So you did that interview prep. Look at LinkedIn. That's a nice little hack. I don't think I've ever really done that. So if you find the recruiter's name you're talking to, do some prep on them, and then possibly if they a Saints fan or a Colts fan or something like that, you might say, "Oh, I'm a Colts fan too," just to build rapport.
Right.
I like that as a tip and a hack.
For sure. So now, I think the other thing that I do is, that is essential, is I do debriefs, where we kind of soft close before an offer is made or anything like that. I get an idea of how the person feels after they interview, right? That way I can provide that type of feedback to clients. Like, hey, this person, felt really good. They thought that your question about XYZ, it just shows that they were paying attention. And I also say, hey, like, no offers are here yet, but if you do get one, how do you feel about accepting it? Yeah. That way I can do more of we call it soft close. Okay. Before an offer actually comes, then we already know, like, okay, this person's going to accept. Yeah. Right. So then us doing just that little tweak helps us from like a relationship standpoint, because then they're going to say, well, Eddie at XYZ company, like, knows what he's doing. Like, everybody he presents is gonna, accept if we offer them the role. So I rarely run into situations where someone just doesn't accept, because the thing is that, again, with, good discernment that I feel like I've been instilled with, I can gauge like what makes sense and what doesn't make sense from like a career standpoint for people, because you have people who, they'll interview and say, I don't know about this. Yeah, at least I'm aware of it.
And that's the worst thing probably for somebody trying to hire somebody. I found somebody I like and they interviewed well, but come to find out they don't even really want the job, or they live in Kalamazoo and I need them to move, and they're like, oh, well, I'm just kind of testing the market. And it's like, so I like that. That's good wisdom. So you mentioned also trick questions. Give some ideas of when you're interviewing, like how people, when you're preparing for a career, like what are like trick questions where people try to throw people off a little bit?
So it's two main trick questions I always say, and they're not intended on being tricky, but depending on how you answer it, it can be tricky. One of the main ones is, let's say if you are looking, or you're looking, but you're currently working, or looking, and you're not currently working. Either way, a lot of times a manager may ask you, hey, so what happened at your last job? And the reason why that's tricky is because depending on how you answer it, it can be tricky. So if you say I didn't like Barbara in accounting, and we had it out or whatever, and you're talking negative about your last company to your potential new one, then
not a good look.
That might not be a good look. So normally I think the best practice is keep it on the up and up. Even if something did go happen,
that so you really didn't like Barbara and y'all had it out. Okay, so how do you handle something like that?
It's more so you just stay on the positive route. Talk about, you looking to elevate, pivot to something, greater, and then turn it back on the company. I see this company as something, valuable for me so I can grow, help a team. You just don't want to get into situations where like you're being too detailed about anything negative to someone who you aren't working for yet.
Got it.
So
that's a good one.
The second one is, this is pretty common, like what are like pros and cons? You always, how do you tell someone that you're trying to get to hire you things you don't do well?
That's a big one. I think people will really want to know this.
Right. So I always say, and again, it's more so wordplay. You don't want to be in a situation where you're like, I'm not organized and I'm not on time and I don't do anything well,
But I really want to work here.
Right, I come in late, leave early. You should hire me, right? But I think the biggest thing is focus on maybe some things that you are in the process of improving. Say it that way. That way it's, we're here. We might not be the greatest at this, but we are working on improving it.
Right.
Because in any job or anything, there's going to be situations and things you don't really do well at. But if you're focused on how you can improve, that'll go well for you more than just being pessimistic and just saying, I don't do anything right.
Right.
So those are the two main things I
like
would say.
So you got to spin it in such a way that, hey, I would say avoid timeliness, organization, and these things. But just to say, time is an issue. I'm trying to think of how I would say it. Like,
I probably wouldn't even say that in an interview.
Yeah, like honestly, you should avoid time.
Yeah,
you should avoid disorganization.
I would normally say, like, if you're gonna focus on a con, focus on more of like a process or like an action or like a job duty, as opposed to things you actually can control. Because if you say time, you can just get up early. That'll just kill that. Right?
That's easy. Yeah. Okay, I know which one I like to say. I like to say something like, one thing I need to work on. I love to overachieve. So sometimes I need to make sure that I'm just sticking within the parameters of the job and not doing so much where it's putting more stress on me or others around me.
Boom. Yeah, that's great.
Right, because now it's like, this guy's an overachiever, which could be a good thing most of the times, but he made it into a con and is willing to,
Yeah.
So you basically, So stuff like that, y'all. Don't kill your own self in the interview by really saying that,
Bingo.
I'm terrible at this. Okay, so Mackenzie brought up a great point, and let's close with this. Like, what, and you jumping back to your personal experience and everything you've been through, what do you think were the characteristics that made you quick to hire? Of course, you talked about relationship building, but maybe these are things that made you quick to hire, but I might also, if people do a self-assessment and see this within themselves, they can feel confident that they will find that next opportunity.
Okay. I have a weird obsession of being prepared for everything. Now, obviously, everything won't go as planned, but being prepared, I have the mindset that it will not be because of me. That's how I look at everything. Like, if something doesn't work out, it's not going to be because like I was unprepared.
Right.
So when it comes to preparing for interviews, I probably know more about you than you know about me.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm ready, baby.
Like, I've looked at every nook and cranny that I can find, even if I don't discuss it. I'm just prepared. So then that way I can control the interview. I'm asking questions. I'm interviewing you.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm interviewing you, Jack.
So, because it has to be buy-in, right, on both sides.
Right.
Like, I think somewhere along the way we've gotten to a degree where it's like we're at the mercy of people we're interviewing for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, no, like you're interviewing them because if you're hired, you're going to want to like where you work and buy in.
Right.
You have some ownership in this too. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that because they're so.
Oh, that's so good.
You know, so like that's the approach that I have. Anything that I do, like whether it's business, anything, I'm overly prepared because, you know, if someone may fall short in something, I need to be able to pick up the slack.
Yeah, that's dope. Okay, so I want to touch on what you said, but I'm going to limit myself. But being prepared is one. Give us two more characteristics that you think make you quick to hire, easy to hire, that people could maybe work on in themselves.
Personable. You know, I'm not a robot, right? Like, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that as much as skill set is important, like, you got to be likable.
Yeah.
You can be as good as you want to be in the job, but if they don't like you, if you're hard to get along with, hard to deal with, it's only a matter of time before either you leave or they tell you to leave.
Yeah, that's good. So be personable, be meaning, and I guess the definition of be personable is be a person. Don't be a robot. Don't be so, I'm coming to do my job. I don't know anything else. I can't, you know.
Right.
Like have some water cooler talk a bit. Probably control it, but talk to somebody about that. This was actually a learning for me because I am the person that is so focused on the job that I sometimes can forget there are people around you. And these people have families and they have lives and they have interests, and everybody is not interested in just talking the numbers all day and da da da. It's like, no, talk to somebody about, what's going on with your family. And once I learned that, and not in like a superficial way, because I've always been easily connected to people. Like I can do small talk well because it's like, it's just a bunch of small things and you don't have to have any depth with anybody. But to your point, if you're personal enough where you're really getting some depth a little bit, where it's like, I like that dude.
Right.
You know, I don't, if they did leave, like, dang, I don't want them to leave.
Right.
You know, so make a connection with people in a way where it's like, I like that. So be prepared, be personable. Give us the last.
And just add value. I think in anything, you got to add value.
Yeah.
Whether it's business, friendships, relationships, family, you got to add value. You have to show that, like, at times you're willing to go above and beyond what the minimum is.
Yeah.
Right?
More than the minimum. I love that.
You know, for instance, like when I go into meetings with my directors, I have all of my notes and everything I need. So then that way, if I'm thrown a question that I might not expect, you know, once we develop that cadence and I kind of know how they operate, I'm prepared for whatever. If we're talking about numbers, I got all the numbers pulled up. If, as a matter of fact, today, our totals for September came out and just, you know, went through each of my accounts, wrote them down, did some analysis on them. In the event that I get a random call today and it's like, hey, I want to look in this. Yep, I already looked at XYZ. Here's why the numbers are here. Or, you know, that way it just, you know, I'm just obsessed with just being prepared. And that's going to mold well for being an employee that adds value.
Yeah, because I like that, because if just because you're getting paid doesn't mean you're adding value. Just because you're getting paid doesn't mean you're adding value. And you've got to recognize that you will be paid, and you'll be likely paid more when you start connecting what you're doing to really a value add. Oh, I see how, I'm just here for the numbers. But no, I'm going to take these numbers. I'm going to interpret them, to your point. I'm going to be prepared if somebody has a question on them. And I'm basically going to be able to explain why, either give them the ability to make a decision based on this or recommend to them a solution based on this information. Like, that is going above and beyond the minimum. It's like, I'm not just here to, you know, do X, Y, Z. It's like, here's what I'm set up to do, but I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to be prepared, you know, to your point, be personable, and I'm going to take all this information, and when necessary, it don't mean you annoy somebody with it. Don't mean you send in a solution every night, all the time. But it's like, hey, couldn't we do this?
Right.
Oh, I took it upon myself to do this. Let me know if you want me to stop. I think it'll be a good reason because of X, Y, Z. I saw this problem. I went ahead and, you know, and I love to tell people, don't just come with problems. Come with solutions. And I think that's maybe the essence of what adding value is.
Yeah.
You know, if you work with me, for me, all of that, then if you see trash on the floor, if you pick it up and just throw it away, that's not in nobody's told you was coming here to be the janitor.
All right.
But that to me that was a problem. I solved it.
Yep.
Because I know I have enough respect for my workplace. I have enough pride in what I do that I want to add value in even the smallest ways, and I want to solve problems in even the smallest ways. I think that's super good. Give us any final thoughts, man, before we close out.
I'd say for the listeners, we're all in a world where, we say, I want to make it. I want to make it. One of the things that I've learned and still learning is part of making it is the journey. Part of making it is the journey.
That's
when
good.
you run into situations where it's like, you're like the ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's like, to some degree, that is making it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like they might see the exterior,
Yeah,
and think, oh, he made it.
Yeah.
But they don't know what it takes to keep it. The journey, right? So that's my thing that I always say. Like, I had an idea of what making it looked like until I actually made it in some respects. And then like the problems and the challenges of just life and business and everything, have you like this. But that's making it in some aspects. And, that provides clarity on, man, have I made it yet? It's like, well, when do you really even know?
Yeah.
If you made it, right?
Yeah.
So like, I look at it that way. Sometimes making it is, as long as it's going like this and you run into situations where you might have some challenges, as long as it's this, like, that's making it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I love it. I love that. Wow. I'm almost speechless because that's what it is. It is, the journey is making it. If you're not facing a down in all of your ups, if you don't have no setback in your career, because I'm not going to rehearse the whole episode, but the fact that you were able to take that second firing, that second layoff in stride, it's like, okay, I can handle these things. And that's what making it is. Have I made it in my career? Where have you ever had a disappointment? Have you ever had a letdown? And how did you bounce back from that? And that's really the journey. So the journey is making it. Wow. Wonderful. So I hope that encourages some of y'all, man. I hope that y'all realize if you're looking for careers, if you just got laid off, if you're dealing with challenges, if you're trying to figure out how to interview, whatever it is, like, go with the flow, ups and downs, take it in stride. It's not abnormal. Everyone who's done anything has been through this. So you can make it too. Stay motivated. It's your boy, StephenMotivate. Thanks again, Eddie. Until next time, peace.